This is Join Us in France, episode 193. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France, its many quirks, its history, its language, and, of course, destinations in France you want to learn about because hopefully you'll be visiting soon. Today, we take a deep dive on quirky French foods. Dare I say it, even scary French foods. On today's episode, Elyse and I present to you a cornucopia of bizarre French foods. Even if you never plan on trying any of them, you need to know about them because they'll pop up on menus here and there, and I've known visitors who had big surprises when their food arrived. And I would love to hear about those in the comments below this show post. You'll find it at joinusinfrance.com/193. If it's happened to you, I want to know about it. If you're interested about learning about food in France, you should also check out episode 161, 50 must-know French phrases for hungry visitors. Like I said earlier, the show notes and photos for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/193. And folks who are subscribed to the email list, which I call the extras, will get the recap of this episode in a few days. Join Us in France is brought to you by Patreon supporters and Addicted to France, the small group tour company for people who want to enjoy France to the fullest with zero stress. Check out our upcoming tours in May 2018 on addictedtofrance.com. Hello, Elyse.
Hello, Annie.
How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
Excellent. We're going to talk about weird French foods.
Weird French foods.
Yes.
WFF.
I'm calling it a cornucopia of bizarre French foods because I like the word cornucopia.
I see that you do.
Okay, I have to warn you, everybody. This episode might gross you out a little bit because some of the descriptions, especially going towards the later part of the episode, might be a little bit disturbing to you, might turn your stomach.
If you are.
Especially if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, right. Because a lot of these bizarre French foods have to do with animal parts.
Right.
We don't normally talk about, but I can't warn you about them if I don't tell you what it is, right? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense.
Or rather than even warning people, let them know if they are truly, truly adventurous.
Exactly. Most French people, they don't really think that it's a problem to eat these things because if you're going to eat meat anyway, you might as well eat the whole animal, right?
Yes.
And historically, that's what people did.
It's more ecological.
That is true. I know my father, for instance, he was raised in rural part. It was very rural. They had animals, and they killed their own animals and ate their own animals. And if they wanted a chicken, they went out and grabbed the chicken and killed the chicken and plugged the chicken. And they didn't do this every night.
No.
No. This was for Sunday meal or something, and it was a special occasion.
And it is true that traditionally, until I guess recent times, people used every part of the animal because it really made sense to not waste things.
Yes.
Really.
Yes. Yes. And something that's a little bit counterintuitive also is that historically, during a siege, you would think that they wouldn't eat animals. They wouldn't have any meat left. But it was actually the opposite that was happening.
Right.
During a siege, they went and ate all the animals that they could.
That they could find, even ones that normally we do not eat.
Right. So, during the Paris siege, they ate the elephants that were at the Paris Zoo. That was in 1870. Late 1870. It wasn't that long ago.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, even if I remember correctly, that happened in Warsaw in Poland in World War II when they were being starved, and they did go and take animals out of the zoo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they ate their cats, they ate their dogs, they ate rats, they ate anything that flew over the house. So this is a different.
But this is different, right?
We're
talking about basic traditional things from different parts of France.
Right. In most rich countries, the reason why we mostly eat chicken breasts is because the rest of the chicken is sold off to other, like to make dog food or to make
chicken breasts. Well, chicken legs too we eat.
We do. But maybe chicken was a bad example. But there's parts of the animals that we don't, like in America, you don't eat pigs. Well, maybe you do eat.
I think
pigs.
I think it depends on. A lot of people, I think, have certain foods that they have heard of or have they tasted because maybe their grandparents or great-grandparents came from a country that ate that particular dish.
Right.
But I think with young modern people, those other parts of the body other than the typical steak, chicken leg kind of thing, nobody eats them very much anymore.
Right.
And so they haven't heard of eating them.
Right. And they still get used, but they get put in other products.
Exactly.
They
They definitely get used in other products.
Right. And in France, because gastronomy is so important, some of these parts of animals that most Americans and Canadians and Australians wouldn't eat have become kind of a delicacy.
Yep.
Right? Because there's special dishes, regional dishes that have to do with them. And so, they've become important. And people will tell you, oh, you must try this.
Right. Right. Which sometimes you do once, and then that is all.
Yes, you're good.
Although some people really like some of these things. So
yeah. But so why are we telling you all of this at all? Why are we discussing this subject that's a little bit unsettling for some people, I'm sure? It's because you will find these foods on the menu in many French restaurants. And the way this works is that it's usually presented as a special.
Yeah.
So different restaurants will get into the habit of offering this delicacy food on specific days of the week. And the locals know that, and they like it, and so they go to that restaurant on a Thursday or whatever the case may be, just because they know it's on the menu that day. And so when you ask, as a visitor, when you ask for the special, sometimes there's 2-3 things that you can choose from. And on a regular basis, I wouldn't say all the time, but regularly, one of these possibilities is one of these somewhat bizarre French foods.
And generally, my experience has been that it tends to be, perhaps in more restaurants in general in Paris, but otherwise, it's regional food restaurants. So that if you have a restaurant that specializes in Alsatian food or from Auvergnat, which is in the center of the country, then they will always have one or maybe two specials that are specific to that region.
Right.
And that's where a lot of these dishes come from.
Right. And they usually can't make them every day. Right. Like you couldn't show up at a restaurant and say, today I want to try this weird food that I heard about on the podcast. Right. It's not going to work that way.
No.
If they have it, they have it. They don't stock this stuff, everything. But there is one place in France where I know for a fact that they have a lot of them, and that's called Les Grands Buffets in Narbonne. Mm-hmm. It's this fancy-ish. It's like if you've ever been to Las Vegas buffets, it kind of looks like one of the nicer Las Vegas buffets.
Is that like a buffet that's like a salad bar, but for other kinds of foods?
Oh, yeah. It's the salad bar part of it is very small.
Okay.
It's got all French specialties.
Huh.
And so you have some part of it where they have a lot of cooks. They have big displays where they show all the things that they can make on order for you. And they also have chafing dishes with traditional French foods.
That they keep warm so you can...
That they keep warm. And in those chafing dishes, they have weird foods that are weird local foods. And they taste, some of them I hadn't tasted before, but because I was there not too long ago, I thought, okay, I got to try this, at least a bite, to know. And so if you are adventurous and you want to try a lot of these French specialties, Les Grands Buffets would be a good place to do that.
And for that, you have to go to Narbonne.
And for that, you have to go to Narbonne.
Which is episode? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I will put it in the show notes. Or in the introduction. Maybe I'll add it to the introduction.
Okay.
But it's also a place where you have to reserve because it's very, very popular. There
are a few brasseries I know in Paris that are famous for regional foods, like one that I know comes where almost everything comes from Auvergnat, and one from Alsace.
Do you remember any of the names of those?
No, but I do remember that both of those are not far from the Place de la Bastille.
Okay.
On either Boulevard Magenta or one of those right there.
Okay.
And they specifically have foods from regions like that. And so if you want some of these dishes, it's a good place to go and check out.
That's good. That's good to know. All right. If you are in France and you want to try some of these specialties, you could go to any charcuterie. And they usually stock some of them. Not all of them, but some of them.
The ones that are, you mean like a traiteur would? That kind of thing?
Yeah. Les charcutiers, if it's a boucherie-charcuterie.
They would have some of them.
They will often have andouille or some of these weird foods that you can buy. And they don't have all of them, I don't know a single place in France where you could show up with this list that I'm going to make for you.
And have them all.
No, it doesn't work that way.
And I think some people have a tendency to, if they come from a region like Burgundy, they know that there's certain foods that are like these that come from there. So we should start naming them because I'm sure people are getting curious now. What are all these weird foods we keep talking about? Really?
I got to tell one more thing. If you want to make them, there are lots of recipes. I'm not going to give you specific recipes here. What I'm going to do is tell you how it's made, generally speaking. And then if you want a recipe, there's a really good site called Marmiton. I don't know if you ever go look at recipes there, but it's a really good site. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. All right. And we'll keep the cheeses and stuff for the end.
Because they come at the end of the meal.
Exactly. And we start with the beginning of the meal, which is the seafood platter.
Seafood platter. You've got 3 things there, which I do not eat.
I see.
There you are. Right away.
So maybe I should talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, oysters, les huitres.
Which is something that people love here in France.
We love them. We eat a lot of them. We usually don't eat them cooked, although there's a few places where you will find them cooked. We usually eat them on the half shell, and they are delicious, and I love them. And
it is something that, I know you and other people I know who love them. It is true that in France, unlike in the States, it is mostly eaten on the half shell raw. It's not something you cook with. You don't. There are some places in the States, like in the Northwest in the States, where you can cook them. It's also something that I don't know if that's me. I associate with Christmas time a lot.
Yes,
too.
Christmas and festive occasions. Usually winter months.
Right.
Most of the time, because the oyster beds are reproducing now as we're going into the spring and summer. They're not going to be drawing a lot of, it's not the right time. Another one that's really typical that you will find on oyster platters is bulots. Bulots. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's almost a snail thing.
Well, I was going to say.
It looks like a snail.
It really looks like a snail to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're
boiled.
Very small. Right. And they're boiled in a broth.
Right.
And you go dig out the animal. Right. And it's not something I like, but if the fancier the seafood platter, the more you will find of these different things. On a very fancy seafood platter, you will find steamed crab, bulots, oysters, shrimp, oursin, which is the next thing.
Right.
That's sea urchin.
Right.
I have only tried those once, and I thought, why do people eat this? It's
But
disgusting.
then you eat oysters, you see.
But then I eat, but urchins are really, really strong flavor, and there's nothing
more
to
iodine tasting, I bet, right?
eat. I don't remember.
That's something I haven't tasted. I have tasted the bulots, not last summer, but the summer before, when we were up in Brittany.
Well, yeah.
We did a little bit of traveling, and one night went to this restaurant that was supposed to be kind of a nice place, and as a first course, they offered this, and I didn't know what it was, and I thought it was kind of like shrimp, which I love. And then they served this kind of bowl of these tiny little snail-looking things.
Yep.
And I ate two, and I went, "Oh no, this is not going to work," And that was the end of that. So the name has stuck in my mind forever. Yes.
Yes, it's a problem.
It is a delicacy, though.
Yes, it's something people like. Foie gras.
Foie gras.
Foie gras. Okay. Yeah, I'll let you talk about foie gras.
Foie gras. Okay. I mean, I know really that not only in the States, but particularly in the States, there is a huge campaign for people to not eat it. People feel that it's from animals that have been mistreated. Of course, we're talking mostly ducks. It used to be also geese, but mostly now it's ducks. It's a specialty, particularly of the southwest of France. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody here who does not eat it, even though because it is very rich, most people just eat a little bit at a time. I do eat it. I don't make it myself, and I don't buy a lot of it, partly because it is very, very rich. But I do eat it, and I have to admit that it is not something, because I have spent so much time with French people, you and other people, who feel it's just a typical specialty of the Southwest, that I may be insensitive in a way to people's arguments about why you should not eat it. But for the moment, I still do eat it, but only a little bit. I don't go out of my way to buy it.
Right.
know?
It's not a food that we eat tons of.
No.
I don't eat it most of the year. I mean, I in the whole year, I probably eat 200 grams of foie gras. It's nothing.
Big holidays.
Yeah, it's for the holidays. I don't enjoy it. My husband, it's often on, at restaurants, it's often offered as an extra option for your appetizer. Mm-hmm. And my husband chooses that a lot.
He likes it.
Yeah, he loves that. But he knows that I don't buy it a lot at home. And so he likes to order it whenever we eat out. But I don't do that. I will have, if it's Christmas time and the family is gathered and my sister-in-law has made a nice, beautiful platter with foie gras in it, I'll eat it.
You'll eat it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much me,
and
too.
I
enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I won't go out of my way to get it either.
No.
And, well, I mean, there are lots of arguments for and against, but to me, they're similar to arguments about whether you eat animal products or not. So to me, I don't personally, I think if you accept that you eat meat and animal products, I don't see that much of a difference in general. But that's debatable. Mm-hmm. It is debatable. But it is a specialty, and I have a friend who makes her own.
I've made my own too.
You have made your own.
Yeah.
And really, it's part of what people eat, particularly in certain parts of France.
My sister makes her own. My sister-in-law makes her own.
Right.
We all make our own in the family. We all have our plan where are you going to go get your livers this year and whatever. And, you have people sharing tips with, just like you'd be sharing tips about the best priced shoes or whatever.
Right.
Well, we do that with duck liver. It's kind of sick, but I haven't made any at home for a few years, though.
There's what they call the Marché de Gras, which is in the Gers, which is the department next to us west of Toulouse, where there are several weekends, I guess it's in October, where people go to buy huge quantities, and that's where most of the area is filled with ducks that do that. Yeah,
and you can buy it lots of different places.
Right.
Anyway, it's one that you have an opinion about. You form your own opinion.
Right.
Eat it, don't eat it, but you will find it in a lot of restaurants in France.
Everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. Then the other strange French food is steak tartare, which is really a raw piece of ground beef.
Right.
Okay. It's something that if I'm eating beef, I enjoy it. Right now I'm on a kick where I'm not eating beef. So, but I come and go. I'm a terrible vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian at heart, but I transgress a lot.
Now, I would say that maybe because in the last few years it's become very fashionable, you can even find it on menus in the States now.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's become very much the thing to eat.
Huh.
So it used to be more something you would find only here. But I was surprised in my last 2 visits back to the States that you would see it.
You can find it.
Yes, you can find it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I guess obviously it's a little bit like the same thing as sushi. You have to just make sure that what you're eating is very fresh.
Yes. Well, in restaurants that's what you pay the restaurant.
It is something I do not eat. Interestingly enough, even though I am not a vegetarian at all, I can't eat it raw. I just can't eat meat raw. I'm not there yet,
Yes, and so there's a little bit of a different take on it. There's some places that will do steak tartare aller-retour, is what they call it.
Oh, yeah?
That means that they put it on a very hot pan with some oil, both sides.
So it sears it a little bit?
It's seared both sides, but the inside is completely raw.
And then sometimes they put an egg on top of it.
Okay, that's à cheval.
That's à cheval. Okay.
That's à cheval, not de cheval,
cheval.
but à cheval.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Maybe that's a moment to say that it is a fact. Here is where I'm very American, I guess, right? There is horse meat in some restaurants. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing to explain the difference between à cheval and de cheval so that people don't eat it.
Si c'est steak de cheval, DI, it's horse meat.
It's horse meat, yeah.
If it's steak à cheval with an A with an accent on it, that means that there's a cooked egg on top.
On top, yes. Big difference.
And we do that with ground beef, with all sorts of food. Sometimes they will just add an egg on top. Even pizza.
Yeah.
So that's à cheval.
Right.
Yeah. So, and sometimes, how do we say that in French? When it's chopped, when it's not ground beef that's made in a machine, but it's chopped.
Oh, hand chopped?
Yeah. Au couteau. That's what they call it. Steak tartare au couteau.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Right. And so it's
bigger pieces then.
It's little bigger pieces and it's very recognizable. I mean, and steak tartare always has seasonings that go with, including a raw egg. Yes.
Oh, interesting.
So, it's really a food that a lot of Americans and North Americans and Australians would not eat.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm sorry to say it's delicious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you eat it.
But it's the seasonings. Oh, right now I won't eat it. I'll probably go, see, this is what I do. I do a few months where I'm vegetarian.
And then a few months where you're not.
And then a few months where I'm not because I'm weak.
No, it's just your body says, now I need to eat meat. That's all.
Okay, another strange food is Moules Marinières.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's so strange.
Really?
No.
I've never seen that in America.
Oh, sure. Any place that has mussels.
Okay.
Italian restaurants will have it everywhere. Places that have a lot of fish and seafood.
Okay.
Especially if they're on the coast, East Coast or West Coast.
Okay.
Mussels are never eaten raw. So most of the time, I've never seen mussels eaten raw.
I used to as a kid.
But mussels in a marinière, which is, of course, basically a white wine sauce, you will see more and more, and especially if you go to Italian restaurants.
Oh, very good. So moules marinières.
Moules marinières.
So this would be anywhere in France. Typically, it's served in a big old pot. And some places, they will say à volonté.
Yeah.
So you eat your pot and then it's mostly shell.
Right. And it's always served with French fries.
Yes, always served with French fries.
Always.
And sometimes when you get to the bottom of the pot, you can ask for another one.
Yep.
It just depends.
I love it.
And in Normandy, they will do a similar take on that, except they use cream. And that is so good. It's awful. It's awful good. But you wouldn't eat that, right?
No.
Yeah, no, she's not a cream person.
I'm not a cream person.
Nope.
I like my little white wine in there.
It's white wine and onions and garlic
and parsley.
Yeah. Okay, Gésiers.
Okay. All right. It's the word in English is giblets.
Yeah.
And particularly in the last few years, it's become very fashionable to have a salad with Gésiers. And in general, it's duck giblets, which means it's basically a dish that originally comes from the southwest of France, which now I think you can pretty much find anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're cooked just like the pieces of duck, and cooked in their own fat and preserved. They're boiled and then preserved so that when they're taken out, you can heat them up and put it on a bed of salad greens. That's usually the way it's served. That's in my experience.
Yes.
And if I happen to like it, I think some people who taste it find it interesting until they know what it is, because it's certain parts of the duck. But I grew up in a family where my grandma, who was from Eastern Europe, made giblets all the time.
I see.
So I think it's really what we're used to eating, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not that strange.
I think the giblet is the first part of the stomach of these animals.
It's actually a mix. It's heart and...
heart?
Yeah, it's also the heart.
Really?
Yeah. And it's another part somewhere. I'm pointing with my finger down there. I'm
because
not sure where it is.
I always thought that it was the part of the stomach where they grind down stones.
Oh, I think yes, but they also use other parts. It's not just one. The giblet is not just one part, as far as I know. I may be wrong. I think
when you buy a thing in salade de Gésiers, it's sliced.
Well, we'll have to. But it's little parts of the animal that you normally would not think about.
Yeah.
But it actually is very good.
And the way they make it is they use duck fat and they cook it for a long time. Yeah, but it has to be cooked a long time.
Very long time, because
otherwise
it's hard.
It's really hard. Yeah, but it's not cooked in broth. It's cooked in duck fat.
Right.
Which makes it really delicious.
Yes.
Coq au vin.
Now, coq au vin, to me, before I even came to live in France, to me, this was a classic of French cuisine. So I wouldn't put it in the weird category. It's a classic like beef bourguignon, a dish where they use wine for cooking. And basically, the reason it's a little bit odd, maybe compared to other dishes, is because it's the coq. Which means, of course, it's the rooster.
Yeah.
That's usually, I suppose that...
Yeah, that means rooster in French, folks. She didn't use a bad word right there.
No, right.
That's a rooster.
It's a rooster. And my guess is, just like with a lot of dishes that start on a farm, that it was when the animal was so old that they had to, use it. And it's tough because it's been around for a while, that they started cooking it in old red wine, because that helps soften it up. My guess is that's how it started.
Probably. It's possible.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like it that much?
I don't like anything cooked in wine that much. A little bit of wine is fine, but cooking in red wine, that's why I wasn't super fond of the...
Boeuf bourguignon?
Boeuf bourguignon, I will eat it once in a while, but when we're in Burgundy, they cook everything in wine.
See, you like Normandy because everything is cooked in cream.
Yes.
And I like it when it's cooked in wine.
Yeah, I'd much rather have either a white wine or... Cooked in white wine, I don't find strange.
Okay.
Cooked in cream, I like. Cooked in tomato sauce, I love.
Yeah.
So, it's...
But the red wine,
But the red wine, I'm not a fan.
I love it.
Yeah. So the next thing is, we're staying in Bourgogne.
We're staying in Burgundy.
Escargots de Bourgogne.
Okay, here we go. You like.
No.
Me no.
No, I don't like.
No, me no. Like.
I don't eat those.
I did taste them once.
Yeah, I've tasted them.
They are cooked in lots of butter and garlic, usually. But I can't get past the fact that it's a snail. That's all. That's it.
So not so long ago, they had a special at the store, and it was mussels
Yeah.
Like on the half shell, they were frozen.
Okay.
So they're fancy looking mussels that you eat as an appetizer.
Right.
And it was in a sauce that was very much a butter and garlic and parsley sauce.
Okay.
And it reminded me of how you would eat escargot.
Right.
Because it's just mostly butter and seasonings,
right. But when we did our trip last year with people in Paris, do you remember how many people tasted the escargot?
Yeah, most people tried them.
Most people try them, and actually some people like them.
Yep.
And whether it's because they actually like the taste of the snail or whether it's because they like that butter and garlic.
Oh, it's the butter.
But honestly, I think maybe if it was disguised as something else, I might try it and like it.
Yeah.
But I just can't deal with the fact that it's a snail.
Yeah.
And it is really a specialty, and lots of people love them.
Yeah.
And maybe people should know that most snails that are served in a restaurant are snails that have been bred to be eaten.
Oh, yeah.
They're not just snails out there, and they're given cornmeal. So there is no danger in eating them. It's just a question of whether you like the idea of eating them or not.
Yeah. Okay, next one, rillettes.
My husband loves rillettes.
I can't stand them.
Oh, really?
So you will find rillettes of all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Rillettes de porc, rillettes de canard, rillettes de saumon.
De roi.
De roi.
Roi. Couscous. Roi. Goose.
Doigt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mais saumon, I don't know if it comes in the same category, because it's basically the word is used now to talk about a spread.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a meaty spread with lots of fat in it.
With a lot of fat in it. And the salmon and tuna ones, I've bought some recently. They're not bad. They're not quite the same. They're not as heavy, rich as the meat ones.
Yeah, no, I don't eat that.
Oh, you don't like the consistency of it?
It's way too fatty.
My husband loves rillettes.
Yeah, lots of people. And you will find them served at aperitif a lot. So your pre-dinner drinks.
Right.
You get nibbles, and in a lot of families,
toasts and things like that.
Yeah, in a lot of families, they'll just open a jar of rillettes and just attack it.
Yep.
Yep. And my brothers, they do that.
The difference between pâté and rillette is pâté is chopped.
Right.
And this is...
And the fat content is a lot less. I mean, it's still super high.
It's super high. But the rillette is like shredded teeny little pieces, like the one that's made from goose, and it's mixed with a lot of fat. And it is, unfortunately, very tasty, even though it is extremely fatty.
Yeah.
And so it's got a different consistency. There are people who will eat pâté that won't eat rillette.
That's me.
That's you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, there are people who like it all.
Yeah.
Bad for your heart, but it's good down your stomach.
Yeah. Another thing that we eat in France that you will often find at restaurants is when they serve pot-au-feu.
Yes.
Pot-au-feu is a beef and vegetable stew. It's really delicious.
It's cooked in a broth as opposed to in a heavy sauce.
Right. And typically it is served with bone marrow.
That's right.
Now, for a while, they stopped doing that because of mad cow disease.
Yes.
Right? But now that we don't have too much problem with that anymore in Europe, or any at all, as far as I know, people have gone back to eating beef bone marrow.
Well, now, interestingly enough, and I love making that interesting because it's the vegetables are actually cooked in a broth, so they're kind of like
well, you cook your meat and then you keep the broth,
right? But it's traditional to put in 2 or 3 of those bones that have the marrow in it to add flavor to the broth. And again, it's a question of what you're used to eating, because I grew up in a household where we did eat that. So
even in America.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was not something weird to me, although it is a strange consistency,
Right. But it's
so you either
good
like it or you don't like it.
So with fresh bread, you spoon it out, you put it on your fresh bread, and you add a little salt on top.
Right.
Oh, it is
See,
so
you
good.
like that. Now, the thing is that some people would find that totally disgusting,
It's almost 100% fat, because bone marrow is...
Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah. It's extremely fatty.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does have a good
See,
taste.
I don't like it in the rillette, but I love it in the pot-au-feu.
Well, it's a different consistency because it was cooked in a broth. So
right, but the broth you create when you're cooking your meat.
It's very tasty.
Oh, yes, it's very good. I mean, I used to make it all the time. almost everybody in my family has gone vegetarian.
But it's actually, in terms of stew and dishes with meat, pot-au-feu is actually fairly dietetic because you have carrots, leeks, turnips,
onions,
potatoes that are cooked in this broth, so it's not very fatty.
Yeah.
And then the beef on the side.
The fatty part is
the marrow.
The marrow, and then when you're done cooking all of that in a big old pressure cooker, you remove. So I could even give you the recipe. This is I used to make this all the time in the winter. You get lots of beef shanks. Mm-hmm. They have to be beef shanks because they're fibrous. More gelatinous. And you cook them, and then you put them under pressure for maybe 50, 60 minutes for a long time. Then you open your pot, you add your vegetables, and you cook for 50, 60. Wow. No, the vegetables you cook for 15 minutes, sorry. And then you open that, and then you remove everything, and you serve that.
The broth.
No, you serve the meat and the vegetables.
Oh, and what do you do with the broth?
The broth, you put it to cool, and then the next day it's cooled, and so all the fat has risen to the surface. You skim it off. If you want to be good to your body, you skim it off, and then you add noodles.
Oh, that's interesting. Now,
and you eat it the next day.
That's very interesting because
in restaurants they don't do that. In restaurants they will serve you pot-au-feu with the broth as the appetizer, and then the beef and the vegetables.
But that's how I learned from other French friends who made it that way. To have the broth first.
But then you have to make it the day before because you don't have the broth you make as you're making your dish.
Right. But we always had the broth and then a platter with just the meat and the vegetables.
So they probably cook the meat and the vegetables the day before. Okay. And that's how restaurants do it. You know, that's how you do it. It's delicious.
It is delicious.
If you eat beef, which I don't right now, it's delicious. Fantastic. This is probably what's going to bring me back to eating beef one day.
Talking about it.
But not until next winter.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing we eat in the Southwest that's really, really good is the cœur de canard.
Which is like the Gésiers.
But it's hearts. But these are really hearts.
Right.
And those are so good too.
See, you like that.
With persillade and...
See, to me, it's like the giblets. It's pretty... the Gésiers, it's pretty much the same thing.
No. It's much more tender. It's much more tender. So when visitors from the U.S., friends, family, whatever, when they come for the first time, I always make them a scary meal. And a scary meal is all these foods that they normally wouldn't
So that
eat.
they won't come back again. Really?
They've all come back at least one more time.
Oh, wow.
So I think I didn't scare them well enough.
Oh, really?
But I usually include duck hearts because you find those so easily in the Southwest.
Well, we do. I mean, they're already prepackaged and you just have to heat them up and everything.
Yeah, it's very easy to find. Whereas anywhere else, there are lots of other places in France where you wouldn't find them easily. So I make that. And I like them, but not everybody is going to like that.
No.
Okay, then on my list I had the steak à cheval versus the steak de cheval, but we've already talked about that. Then the croque madame.
Yeah. Well, everyone I think knows, or almost everyone knows, I think now that a croque monsieur is a very lovely French version of a grilled cheese and ham sandwich.
Yep.
And with the madame, it's the egg on top.
Right. So that's the only difference.
It's the only difference.
Yeah.
But it makes a nice complete meal.
Yes, it's a very complete meal. It fills you up. I mean,
fills you up.
In most restaurants in Paris, anyway, they serve that with a salad.
A teeny green salad.
Yeah,
usually.
a little side salad. And
it's a fun thing to eat. It's better than your old traditional little grilled cheese sandwich on the American way.
They're both good.
It's nice.
Yeah, I like them both. All right, now we're getting to a little bit of the more bizarre foods.
Yeah.
Yes.
Esoteric foods.
Yes, things that we don't necessarily eat, Elyse and I. But we've tested them. Well, we've tried. I've
tried a couple of them.
Yeah, we'll fess up.
I'll tell you which ones I've tasted.
Okay, the first one on the list is the friton.
Yeah, well, you won't get me near that, but that's because I don't eat fat too much. But you must. I bet you have it down here that it's duck, but they also do it with pork.
Maybe they do.
Yeah,
maybe they do.
In Spain, I know they make it with pork rinds.
It's essentially pork rinds or duck
fried,
right,
till it's crispy.
Well, what they do is when they are done removing all the good parts of the duck, the skin that's left and the fat that's left, they cut it up. And they put it in a deep pot.
In a fryer, right?
Yeah. Well, in its own pot. And it will melt.
Why does it get crispy, though?
Because you leave it long enough that it gets crispy.
Oh.
And it's absolutely unedible as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you don't like it?
I will not eat that.
Oh.
I have tried some because I didn't know what it was.
There's some people who love it. They'll eat it like potato chips.
Yeah, I know. I don't eat pork rinds either in the U.S.
Oh.
No.
See, but it's interesting because it is one of those things that people either love or hate.
Right. And that's typically served at apéritif.
Yeah.
Very often. And in Lyon... Oh, they serve that for apéro at every
I'd rather have an olive.
Me too. Give me an olive any day.
Any day.
Yes, yes. Another one is pied de porc.
Oh, yes. And today I actually looked up a little because I knew that it's a specialty of the Basque country, among other places. They have, I couldn't remember the exact...
It's pig's feet.
Cooked in... wine and aromatics and herbs and things like that. It's a real specialty of the Catalonia area and of the Basque country. Why more in the south of France? I don't know. But it is really a specialty on menus in those areas.
Right. And so in France, they will serve them whole. So when they bring you your plate, it looks like a pig's foot.
But really?
Yes. But not ever. I saw my husband's grandfather was from the south of the U.S.
Yeah.
And he grew up really liking pig's feet.
Okay.
Canned.
It's jellied, right?
And in this case, they have removed all the bones.
Right.
And they just keep the jelly and the fat and the skin.
But you're saying that when they serve this here, they leave the bone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've seen it on the menus. I have not tasted it.
I have tasted it, but I haven't ordered it in decades. Okay. This is not something I eat frequently, but there are, I'm pretty sure that my little restaurant in my village serves it on a special day.
A lot of people love it, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I know in Catalonia they love it.
It's really fatty and gelatinous.
Like a little bit like the meat that's used in pot-au-feu, but it's cooked totally differently.
Right. And a lot of these meats, the way they prepare them, the meats that I'm going to list starting now, the way they prepare them is they will marinate them in a solution of water and vinegar to remove undesirable flavors, I guess. And then they cook them in a brine with aromatics for a long time. Okay. And then sometimes they debone and sometimes they don't.
And then they add the wine later on? Or is it cooked with the aromatics?
They could make a sauce on the side with more wine, but the brine contains wine and aromatics.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot. And it's usually white wine, typically white wine, because the red wine would color the food. And so
right. I know red wine is used for wild boar more.
Oh, that's another thing I wouldn't eat.
Oh, I've eaten it. It's very good.
I've tried it because sometimes you go to a fancy dinner and that's what they're serving.
In Carcassonne, it's one of the specialties.
Ugh.
You don't like it?
No.
I do.
No, I don't like les machins faisandés.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons they cook it in a red wine sauce.
Yeah.
So it's not too strong.
I don't like red wine sauce anywhere I find them. Les tripes à la mode de Caen.
Tripe and any fashion is not what I'm going to eat.
No, me neither. So
tripes, everybody. Tripes.
Yeah, that's tripes. So it's the inside lining of the stomach of cattle or I think it can be pig too.
I'm not sure. I think it's mostly cattle.
Yeah, I think it's mostly cattle. They use pigs. They usually add some pig's feet to that. It's boiled in aromatics.
It is really, really a specialty of Normandy.
Yes, it's deboned and then they bake it, and they bake it in a little dish, and you're supposed to make that a mix.
Crumbs?
No, you do a mix of water and flour to seal the outside of the dish. And then you either serve it in that dish or you remove it and then you can serve it sliced or whatever. It is absolutely unedible. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sure there's some people who are listening who love this stuff, but
I've never tasted it, but that's because honestly, it's I have a thing with certain textures and consistencies. So it's not even necessarily because of the part of the animal, because there are other things that are weird parts of animals that I will eat. I do eat liver and things like that. But I've seen tripe before it's even cooked. And so that is already an eliminator for me. But it is really considered a delicacy in Normandy.
It is.
And people love it.
They love that stuff.
There you are.
Yes. And so Caen, it's spelled C-A-E-N. And I know Americans have a hard time saying that word. But it's Caen. Just like the can-can.
Yeah.
If you dance the can-can.
Well, it's just like the city with the movie festival, no?
Maybe they have a movie festival. I don't know.
So what's the difference between pronouncing C-A-E-N and C-A-N-N-E-S?
Say that again.
C-A-N-N-E-S.
C-A... Oh, Cannes.
Cannes. Cannes et Caen.
Oui, exactement.
Cannes et Caen. OK.
C'est Caen.
Caen. That's like Caen. Like when?
Quand est-ce que tu viens? Pareil, c'est Caen.
Okay. Now, thank you so much. I will never mispronounce it again. Okay. There you are. Just figured it out. Okay.
Took you long enough, Elyse. You've been in France, 30 years?
Yeah, it's just, now I know. Okay, that's great. Okay.
C'est Caen.
Okay.
All right. Next bizarre food is the one of the worst, probably. It's andouillette.
We're not trying to discourage you. You understand.
No, but we have to warn you. You really need to know these things because andouillette
it's on the menu a lot in Paris.
On the menu a lot
in Paris.
And because if the waiter tells you it's sausage, which it is, you might think, I like sausage. I'll have that. No, this is sausage made out of intestinal material. Yeah.
It's actually, honestly, the shape is the shape of a sausage. But when you slice it and you see the round layers, it's not the same. It's not the same consistency. Right. It's not the same material inside. And of course, part of the problem is it has a very, very strong taste and odor.
Yes.
And people do like it. Yes. But you have to be prepared for what it is.
So it's intestines, so you can imagine the odor that goes with it.
Although it is edible.
Oh yeah, it's cleaned up. They before they make it, so they will take the intestines, empty them, do the vinegar and water thing, marinade to try and remove most of the offensive odor. They will then cook it, roll it, put it in a sausage, do all sorts of things with it.
But it's so interesting because, you're French, I'm American. We've both been here quite a while anyway. So I've never tasted tripes and I don't want to. I once sat next to somebody who ordered andouillette by mistake, and just looking at it and smelling it, that was the end of that. And pig's feet, it's pretty much the same thing. But there are many French people who love these things.
Right, my brother. So at lunchtime, I was telling my husband what we were going to talk about on the podcast, and he said, "Oh, you probably don't know this, but he met my brother for lunch once, and my brother ordered andouillette, and he said just sitting across from him eating that, and he was so happy to be eating this crap."
Right.
Sorry, literally. That and David was like, I can't believe he's eating this. Just the smell makes me want to run away.
Because the truth is, really, let's face it, it's a question of what you grow up eating and what you're used to eating.
But we didn't grow up eating that. We grew up in the same house. He developed that.
Well, he likes to eat weird things.
Yes, I think he does. I think he does. And the difference, so in France, we have andouillette and we have andouille.
Okay.
Yes, it's essentially the same thing, except the andouillettes are served hot.
Okay.
So they'll be put on a griddle or on a barbecue,
which looks much more like a big sausage.
Right. And andouilles are they're cold and they are sliced, and they are often served for aperitif.
Or first course on a charcuterie platter.
Right. So if you're at some big aperitif and something smells really funny,
or it looks like
that's probably it.
Like swirls.
But you have to be careful because when it's cold, if you take it out of the fridge and you put it on the table, because it's cold, the smell isn't strong. Whereas if it's cooked, the smell is apparent right away. But
so if you're going to try it, eat it cold.
Yeah, don't try it. It's gross. Langue de bœuf.
No, I've eaten that.
I've eaten that too. Don't love it, but
I don't love it, but it's not something that...
That's beef tongue, by the way.
I mean, I won't go out of my way to eat it, but it doesn't put me off as much as some of these other things do. Mm-hmm. Again, what's the difference? I don't really know. It's a strange taste, let's face it, but it somehow falls into the category of I won't die if I have to put it in my mouth,
right?
As opposed to some of these other things.
Andouillette, there's no way I'm putting that in my mouth.
No way. I will go on a water diet. That will be the end of that. Good way to lose 5 kilos.
That would be good for me.
It would be really good.
You should do that sometimes.
Really.
No,
as long as there's ice cream next to the water, I would be okay. Now, langue de boeuf, it's interesting because they serve it also. I've had it in Italy. So it's a dish that is not just French, although I think that they don't do it exactly the same way. But whatever. I mean, it's kind of like liver. It's one of those that maybe is a little bit more familiar than some of the other parts of the animal.
Right. And that's also put in brine and then cooked for a long time with aromatics and then chopped up or whatever it is that they do.
Now, I have one that was not on the list that I just thought of as we were talking. And that is riz de veau.
It is on the list.
Where?
Page 3.
I didn't see it.
It's there. We'll get to it.
All right. Okay. Oh, I see. Yes, it is. Okay. All right.
Okay, next one is tête de veau ravigotte or tête de veau vinaigrette.
Okay, is it really tête de veau?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, tête is the head, de veau of veal. I'm sorry, I told you at the beginning that some of this will get gross.
Is it really?
So what they do is they...
I don't know if I
marinate it, and then they wrap it up in cheesecloth. And then they boil that for like at least 5 hours. And then they dig it out. And then they remove all the bones. Okay. They debone it. And then they serve it.
It's usually made into
chunks.
It's like a loaf.
Exactly. It can be made into a loaf.
So it's sliced.
Right. So if they bought it already made... Okay, so if the restaurant where you're eating is serving to you chunks of riz de veau, that means they probably made it themselves.
Tête de veau.
Tête de veau, sorry. Yeah. Tête de veau. They probably made it themselves.
I've never seen it served that way.
I have. Or they put it into, like
a thing for pâté, like a moule.
Right, but it's like a sheath of fat. In which they stuff all this, and then they put string all around it to keep it together.
It's got some gelatin and parsley usually.
Oh, right? yeah, because inside of the head, obviously, there's lots of cartilage and things like that. And that makes it, like a Jell-O kind of thing.
The Alsatian restaurants and the Alsatian market, for instance, here at Toulouse, they always have it.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's very popular food.
Very popular. And my way of seeing it has always been as sliced as a first course kind of thing.
It could be sliced as a first course, or cold. It could be a main. Exactly. It's usually served cold, or it could be served as a main dish.
Now, to be fair...
That's the difference between the ravigotte, where it's hot, and vinaigrette, where it's cold.
It is true that in most cultures where people use every part of an animal, for instance, in North Africa, they do the similar thing with sheep, because there's more sheep than cow.
Yeah.
And then there are people who will do the same thing with fish heads and take as much of and they use that to make a kind of fish broth with little pieces in it. It really is the idea.
Which we don't do in France.
No. And interestingly, I guess it's still a leftover of when every part of the animal was really precious. So you don't let any of it go to waste.
I guess that's the right... If I had to butcher my own animals...
You would use everything.
I would use everything.
Right. Yeah. And it's a way of conserving it because these things you can cook and then preserve so that you don't have to eat everything right away.
Right.
And again, I think that's why they're traditional dishes that pass through generations. And most people probably don't even think about it anymore in terms of what it really is.
Yeah.
Because they're so used to seeing it on a menu or in a charcuterie.
That's why we're reminding them.
But I'm thinking more of French people who normally would eat it, not necessarily an American. But it is true that sliced like that, you don't really... have an idea of what it is.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't look like anything.
It doesn't look like anything
disturbing.
Nasty. Right.
Yeah. Okay, riz de veau. You wanted to talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Although I'm looking at it, is the thymus. Is it really? I thought it was the pancreas, actually.
No, the thymus is a part of the pancreas.
And it's only that part?
Yes.
Because I thought it was fairly big.
Those are big animals.
Okay.
Veals.
Yeah, it's interestingly, I have tasted it. There was a time when I actually liked it. My dear departed mom loved it. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Right, because this is in English. What would you call that in English?
Sweetbreads.
Sweetbreads, yes.
Right, sweetbreads. And it's strange because it's a dish that is made, and it's rare, really rare. But occasionally you see it on a menu still. It's here. You can get it in northern Italy. You can get it in some Eastern European countries as well. And I'm not sure why you can get it in certain parts of Europe and not in other parts compared to other things. You know, if I remember correctly, I've never seen anybody actually cooking it, but if I remember correctly, listening,
I can tell you how.
No, I think I don't want you to. But what I do think is that it takes a while to cook.
Yeah, well...
You have to take the skin off on the outside.
Exactly. So you cook it for not that long, but then you have to let it cool, take the skin off, and then make a sauce on the side.
Right.
And the sauce on the side can be anything you wish. It could be kind of a sweet and sour sauce. It could be a mushroom sauce.
That's the way I've had it, with the mushroom sauce.
Yeah, it could be... But you need to make a nice sauce on the side.
Now, the reality is, it is just terribly disturbing to think about what it is, but having tasted it before I knew what it was...
Yeah.
It was an interesting taste, even though it's not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Whereas once you know what it is, it makes a big of a difference.
Yes, yes. Another thing that we eat frequently in France, very, very frequently, I should have put that to the top of the list, but I didn't, is boudin noir.
Yeah, that goes with the andouillette for me. I won't eat it.
Okay, so boudin noir is one that I will gladly eat.
See.
Because I was raised with my father, who was raised on, it wasn't a farm, but it was a semi-farm. They had animals. They would raise a pig each year and then swap pigs with another person and then butcher the pig and make everything.
Okay.
And so they had this few days in the year where the whole family had to make all of this.
Right.
And what his favorite was the boudin, which is...
It's made with blood.
It's made with blood, the blood of the pig. And so it's onions, seasonings, pork jaw, which you chop up, lard, pork blood, and more fat, and lots of seasonings.
I won't eat it.
See, that's one that I will eat. And because I was iron deficient for a long time, the doctors actually encouraged me to eat it. They said at least once a week.
Oh, really?
Yes. I don't think it made as big a difference as taking supplements, really.
Right.
but that's...
Or even just red meat, you know.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy red meat. But I do enjoy eating
the fact that I know it's made with blood and the consistency of it, I just
my husband won't touch it.
I will not touch it.
My daughter won't touch it.
I will not.
French people eat it. It's a very common food for French people, but boudin noir is not one that most Americans.
Now I will
try.
eat boudin blanc.
Yes, but boudin blanc is the same thing, but just with bread and a little bit of chicken.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so it's very mild and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the lapin, which is rabbit.
Rabbit, and of course,
it's not unique to France.
No, and in Italy they eat a lot of rabbit, a lot. Ironically, my first taste of rabbit was in a French restaurant in New York, ages and ages and ages ago. And I have to confess that I actually like the taste of it, but I only eat it if I'm served it in someone's house. I will not cook it. I will not order it in a restaurant. But I have had the occasion of being invited to someone's house for dinner.
And they make it.
And I do actually enjoy the taste, which I know people say it, and it is true. It's kind of like chicken.
Kind of like it. It's just drier.
It's a little drier. It's usually served in either a mustard sauce or something like that.
Or a cream sauce.
But
creamy mustard sauce.
I won't make it.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
It's disturbing to see at the store because it looks like a rabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a skinned rabbit.
And of course they're bred to be, cooked just like a chicken. But it is common for people to eat.
I made it once. soon after we moved to France, I don't know what got into me. I made it once, and my daughter, who always had vegetarian tendencies from a very young age.
You told her what it was.
I told her what it was. And
she didn't disown you?
Really mad at me. She was really, really mad at me and I never made it again.
Yeah, well, it is true that, again, it's a question of what you're used to. I know it's often on the menu in Italy.
Mm-hmm. And in France, too.
And people don't think anything of eating it here. Yeah. Really.
It's normal food.
It's normal food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cuisse de grenouille, so that's frog's legs.
Frog's legs. That's why people are called froggies.
Yes, we don't eat them that much. You will find them on some restaurant menus.
Some, but it seems like less or fewer than before.
Yeah, it's more of an Asian thing, I think, now. Yeah, it's more of an Asian restaurant. At the Grand Buffet in Narbonne, I tried one.
Okay.
And decided again that, no, I don't eat that.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but no.
Well, I've heard terrible things about what happens to the frogs before they do it. And I won't even tell you. Okay. But between that and what it is, I just have tasted it twice. And that's it. I will not taste it again.
Yeah.
So
one more that's very disturbing is cervelle de veau en persillade.
Yeah, it's a little bit like in the same category as the riz de veau and the tripes for me. It's stuff that, just looking at it, I don't want to eat
Untouchable.
it.
It's
calf's brains.
Yes, calf's brains.
Yes, it's a delicacy.
And there's places where they will serve you sheep brain too.
Oh,
it's awful.
Oh, and there are people who think these are the ultimate in delicacies.
Right. I remember my mother making some one time when I was growing up, and we all refused to eat it. And she was like, "All right, I guess I won't buy that again."
Yeah.
But no, because you can tell it's a brain.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so
you certainly can.
Yes.
And yet it is among those things that are called high-end delicacies.
Yes. Rognon, rognons.
Rognon. Kidneys. I've eaten them. I've eaten, it's a sheep, actually cut into pieces, put on skewers, cooked in a fire. Yeah. And I've had, believe it or not, in London, steak and kidney pie.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah, in steak and kidney pie, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
Because they don't put much of it.
They don't, and honestly, again, I guess why one and not the other, I don't know. I mean, it's the consistency. It's not quite the same as certain of these other things. It's also, the taste can be strong, but not necessarily. It's more muscly, like meat, as opposed to some of these other things. I wouldn't go out of my way to eat it.
Yeah.
But I did.
But if you see it on the menu, it's kidney.
And if you're curious, you should try it just to see.
Yeah, there's this restaurant in Paris in Le Marais. Oh, what is it called? Something. It's two first names. It's Paul et Marie, or I'll find it and put it in the show notes. Well, that's their specialty.
Oh, is it?
And when I went with family, my cousin-in-law, I guess, was super happy to find it on the menu, and she ordered it, and I had a taste, and it's good.
It's good. Often used. They use a little wine in the cooking if it's not skewered, if it's not like a brochette kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the brochette is when it's very fresh.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of like liver. There's this degree of how horrible it is somehow, things you eat and then you go, okay, I ate that, whatever,
done.
I'm done.
But have you ever tried rognon blanc?
No, and I didn't know what it is, and I don't think I will.
Yes, rognon blanc. So these are actually testicles.
Okay.
Yes. It could be bull, ram, sheep. Sometimes they're called animelles.
Oh, really?
Animelles. Mm-hmm. Yes, les rognons blancs. So if they tell you that it's white kidneys, it's not kidneys.
Have you had it?
I had it once.
I know that
my whole life.
In the regions where they do something that I hate, which is bullfighting, they do serve it in Basque Country. They do serve it on the menu.
Yes. No, it's not very. It's not something. I mean. Yeah, no, I don't eat that, but it
is served.
Yes.
It is served in Basque Country and I think in Catalonia also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, wow.
And then, of course, we have cheval.
Yeah.
Cheval, which is
horse. And a lot of people eat it.
That's horse.
Now, that is strange because it's, I don't know have no. Do you have any idea, for instance, if in France people have eaten horse for like centuries?
Yes,
they have
for always.
Okay.
The thing is, it was really popular. Okay, technically, horse meat is actually better for you than beef because it's not leaner. It's leaner. Right. Okay. Also, again, because of the mad cow disease thing, that went on for 20 years, and people ate more horse because it was the safe meat.
Right.
I grew up eating it often.
Oh, you did?
Yes, because it was something my mother liked to fix. I haven't had it since I was at my mother's house.
Okay.
I won't eat that, but yeah.
I've never tasted it. I was once years ago in a restaurant where I ordered what I thought was a piece of steak and French fries. And then I was told by someone at the table that it was a piece of horse meat. And so I spit out what I had in my mouth and didn't eat the rest of it. I will not eat horse, but that's for purely sentimental
just
obvious reasons.
Yes, I won't eat dog either.
Right,
so,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. But it is true that a lot of people eat it. And I know that still to this day, there are fewer and fewer chevelines, the butchers of horse meat.
There's one in the next village over, but he doesn't just do that. He does charcuterie and boucherie-charcuterie.
And it seems to me, if I'm not incorrect, that you see a lot of older people who probably don't have a lot of money because horse meat is a little bit cheaper.
It's a little bit cheaper, yes. Yeah. Anyway, not a favorite in France. Not something French people eat as much as they did, but they ate it quite a bit in the past.
Yeah,
we've eaten a lot of horse.
Right.
Salade de museau.
Now, what is the difference between that and tête de veau?
Okay, it's so it's beef. Salade de museau and what is it called? Pâté de tête are somewhat similar.
Right?
So salade de museau is something where they take the pig's head, they wrap it up, they boil it, they remove all the bone and everything that's left, they chop it up and put it in a jelly.
Okay.
And then that's cut up and seasoned. It's extremely fatty. It's got a lot of jelly to it. It's delicious.
Oh, you like it?
And it's served with a lot of sliced pickles, cornichons. And it's a vinegary kind of flavor to it. It's served cold.
So it's a little bit like the tête de veau ravigot, no?
Yeah.
Vinaigrette.
Yes, it's kind of like that.
Except that one's pork and one's
Exactly.
Kind of
and it's very good. It's very fatty. It will give you a heart attack for sure. Like most of these things, but
then I'll pass.
But fromage de tête is something that you will find in a lot of restaurants.
Yeah,
as an appetizer.
Why is it called fromage de tête?
I don't know. It's not fromage at all. Fromage means cheese, right?
Yeah.
There's no cheese in it.
Okay.
It's all meat products.
All right.
It's all it's
okay.
We also eat in France. We also eat la perdrix.
Yeah,
that's a partridge,
which is a game. I mean, it's not usually raised, right?
No. This is hunters that. It's
hunters. I guess in the States, people who hunt eat partridge too.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have to hunt for it.
Yeah.
You have to kill the bird.
Yeah. La pintade, guinea fowl.
And now that I love.
Oh, I have not had that.
You've never had pintade?
I've probably had it in my life, but I think
it's even more delicious than chicken.
Huh.
It's got a more subtle taste. I've never had one that's wild. It wasn't gibier, so it was raised, but I go to a good high-end farm that raises all kinds of poultry. I love it. I love pintade. I think it's delicious.
But it's it's smaller than a chicken.
It's like a small chicken, and it's leaner than chicken, so it's kind of halfway between like chicken and a good turkey thing. But I love the taste of it. Yeah,
not one that I have eaten in a long time. French people also eat pigeon.
Yes,
pigeon,
they do.
Which you call squab.
Right.
In
and I don't think I've had perdrix served to me in somebody's house. I don't like it because it's tiny little things.
Yeah.
But pigeon...
les cailles.
Yeah, they caille, right.
Caille is like quail.
Exactly.
And people will eat that.
They will eat it. But I don't think I've ever had pigeon. I don't think so.
I don't think I've had pigeon either. And the other thing that people sometimes serve you, and I'm remembering a meal in particular that was awful. They served du cerfeuil.
The deer. Venison?
Yeah, yes, venison. It was a venison.
Yeah. Well,
I can't eat that.
Well, it's strong. Those are game meats. Those are strong.
Yeah. And they were so excited to have us over for this special thing.
Some people think it's like wild boar. Game meat is stronger tasting.
But in that invite scarred me on two levels, because these are people that I really had nothing in common with. They know my husband. That's why they invited us. And it was really hard to make conversation with them. And then they served this meat that smelled bad to me. And I just didn't want to eat it. I wanted to get out of there. But in France, when you're invited, you don't leave.
No, you don't
for hours.
No.
So I'm scarred for life.
You have to push it around the plate.
Let's talk about strange, stinky French cheeses.
Okay, this is one where I back off. Okay, from the beginning, you're not going to get me close to any of these. But we'll do them, and I want to tell my story about époisse.
Okay. But first, I have to tell you that in France, it's so common for people to eat stinky cheeses that you can actually buy at the supermarket. You could buy a special container that has a thing that you can slide open, and it has a filter.
Right.
So your cheese breathes, I guess, but it doesn't invade
the rest of the
fridge.
Yep.
And it works.
Yep.
It really works. But some of these cheeses are just... My husband eats more of these crazy cheeses than I do. I'm not adventurous.
You're not adventurous. Well, it is a fact that...
But tell us about époisse then.
Okay, well,
that's the first one.
No, I was just going to say that since my husband is also a total cheese fanatic, that the common comment you hear is that it doesn't taste as strong as it smells. But that's like, which happens. But whatever, I still have that smell. How do you get through the smell? Like you have to part it like the parting of the seas before you get to put it in your mouth. Anyway, okay, my époisse story. Why I've never forgotten this cheese. A number of years ago, I was actually living in the northeast of France, and with some friends went to Dijon for a weekend. And Dijon is, I guess we could say, the northern part of the Burgundy area, and it's the country where époisse comes from. It's that region that this cheese, that's a soft cheese, comes from. And so we went to this restaurant that had been recommended, and we got this whatever. It was very nice, the main dish, and it was a fancy place. So we didn't do a prefix. We got just the main dish, and then the guy named Francois, who was the husband of this couple that we were with, he said, "You guys are going to get dessert, but I want to get this cheese that's a specialty of this region, so you can all taste it." And
nice.
And I said, "Wow, this is my year as a Fulbright." And I went, "Wow, how nice! Okay, this is going to be cool." And then he said to us, "But I warn you," he said, "when they bring the cheese to the table, you're going to find that it has a rather strange odor." Mm-hmm. So whatever, I ordered dessert, the other two people ordered dessert, and Francois ordered this époisse.
Yeah.
And they brought the food to the table, and they serve him this dish. And it comes round, and it's like surrounded by little pieces of balsa wood. It's a creamy cheese, so it has to be built up and held.
Yeah.
And so they put this on the table, and I wasn't thinking about what he had said. So all of a sudden, I lean over and I say to the guy who's my boyfriend at the time, I say, Did you get something on your shoes? When we walked into the restaurant, is there somebody around here who must have stepped in something before we came in?
Going on
right?
here?
And he says to me, "No." And then I lean across to the woman and I said, "What's going on?" And she looks at her husband and he says to us, "That, my dear, is époisse."
There you go.
And there you go. And I have never forgotten the name of the cheese.
Yes.
And you will not get it in my mouth.
Oh, no. And all of these really stinky cheeses, they're usually soft cheeses.
Yes.
That they're rubbed in brine.
Yeah.
And they're like left to rot that brine.
I honestly, when you think that brie and camembert can be both very soft and creamy, but that don't have too strong a smell most of the time,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what these cheeses have that makes them so smelly.
I think it's the brine. I
think
think it's the brine and the fact that they're left to age is the nice word for it in that brine. Right. There's another one that's even stinkier, I think, is maroilles.
Yeah,
that's even... So I bought it by accident once because I was inviting a big table full of people for Thanksgiving, and it was the French Thanksgiving. I often have two Thanksgivings at my house, the American one and the French one. This was the one for the French people. And so I wanted to do a nice big layout of cheeses because, French people, they love that. And there was this pretty small cheese with a pretty color, and I bought it, and it wasn't all wrapped in a... I couldn't tell that it was stinky. When I got it out, usually in France, you get your cheese out to get to room temperature, like right before the guests arrive. I really thought one of the dogs had taken a dump in the kitchen or somewhere. It was just
awful,
foul. Mm-hmm. And so I quickly put this thing in the garage where I couldn't smell it, and I covered it up and I put it in the garage. And when the guests arrived and I put the thing on the table, one of the elderly relatives who has since passed was so happy to have this cheese. She hadn't had it forever. It's a cheese from the north of France, from Lille.
From Lille.
That area. And it just reeks to high heaven. It's awful. And there's an even worse version of that.
This one is
it's called Vieux Lille. So this is the maroilles, but it's the aged maroilles.
And these are cow cheeses, right? I think so.
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure they are. Even Époisse is cow, I think.
And it is just foul. I've never had the Vieux Lille. No, it was bad enough having the maroilles.
But now the people who eat it, they really... It seems as if the smell doesn't bother them because they really wait to get that taste in their mouth. Right.
It's the flavor. And they do say that it smells worse than it tastes. And I sure hope so because it tastes really bad. Another one is called Langres.
I don't know that one.
It's from the Champagne region. It's also a soft cheese with a orangey rind.
Okay.
It usually caves in a little bit at the top, and they put a little bit of champagne. In the hole, and they serve that in the Champagne region. They say to serve it with a pink champagne is the best way to do this. I haven't had it either. That one I haven't had, but it's supposed to be smoky and really, really strong. Camembert can be very mild if you just get it out of the fridge and serve it.
Right.
But if you do like my mother and you leave it out all the time, it is awful.
Well, you know what? Okay, so I live with someone who loves Camembert. I don't like it. I don't eat it. But if you get raw milk Camembert, it will always be stronger. And they do say that if you really want to get the full taste of a Camembert, you should take it out at least an hour before you eat it.
Oh, my mother never put it in the fridge.
And it has a very ammoniac smell because of the crust on it.
Yes.
So if he wants to annoy me when the cheese has gotten very ripe, he says, have a smell, And it's like, you can smell it from the other side of the table.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad.
Some people love it. Camembert is like one of the cheeses,
Yeah, French people love it. Brie is another one that we like.
It's not as bad.
It's not as bad, but Brie from raw milk, so the Brie de Meaux.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Okay. It's delicious, but it doesn't have a strong smell, but it has a really strong flavor, and it will actually rip the skin off of the roof of my mouth.
Do you get apts from it? Do you get a little...
Yes, I cannot eat that stuff. It is just too strong. But that one doesn't smell so much. That one is the flavor, and it's the Brie de Meaux.
And it's the Brie de Meaux, which is
it's the real one.
Of all of these, because I don't eat very many of these soft cheeses at all, I do like the Brie.
If you get a regular pasteurized Brie by Président or someone like that,
doesn't have any taste.
I love those because they're creamy,
but they don't have any taste. I mean, I was in Meaux with a group of people years ago, and we watched them as they were making it. I mean, it is fabulous, and it really does make a difference. Obviously, there's a difference too between cheese that's, as they would say, fait or not. You know, if as it ripens, it gets stronger tasting. So you have to get cheese like that before it gets too ripe.
Yeah. Have you tried Pont l'Évêque?
A little bit.
It's a strong cheese. It's a little harder cheese. It's not.
Yeah.
It's in between. It's not a super hard cheese, but it's a little harder
stronger
than the other ones. It is strong. It smells. It tastes good though.
It's not as bad as the Camembert.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Brie,
yeah.
huh?
I'm going down in the offensive smell
but Munster,
here.
the next one, does smell.
Yeah, Munster does smell quite a bit. Yes.
Really? That's
Especially the one from Alsace.
Ones.
Yeah,
Yes.
Alsace. Le Munster d'Alsace.
Yeah.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And it smells. It tastes good though.
Yeah, that's what people say.
Yeah. You haven't tried it?
I've tasted it.
Yeah.
That's
no,
okay.
Not your thing.
No.
Yeah. No, it's not one where I would just help myself again.
No.
No, I wouldn't. Morbier.
No, I like Morbier.
Morbier I liked very much too. It has a bit of a scent that's specific to it.
That's the grass smell, I think.
Could be.
It's an Auvergnat cheese. Now, the specialty, the thing about Morbier is that it has volcanic ash in the middle of it because it comes from that region.
And it's good.
And it's very good.
Yeah.
It's not too strong.
And from the Auvergne as well, you have the Roquefort cheese. Right. And over in the Auvergne, they have a lot of small producers.
Yes.
And some of these are so small and so specialized that they make cheese that I don't understand how anybody can eat that.
Well, it is true that Roquefort is
Super
extremely
strong.
salty.
And it's very, very salty, very strong. And if you get the Roquefort Société
or Papillon,
those are like the mass-produced ones. And they are milder. And I mean, they're still very salty.
They're still salty, but not nearly as salty as some of the others.
Some of these specialties. So if you go to a cheese shop and they talk you into some Roquefort that's made from a small producer somewhere in the mountains, blah, blah, blah.
Well, you can always taste them.
Yeah,
you can always ask to taste.
Yeah, you can ask.
And the fact is, unfortunately, because I have to avoid salt a lot these days, I've given up on blue cheeses in general because they tend to be very, very salty.
Yeah, they're the saltiest.
But a little bit of Roquefort in a salad is delicious.
Yeah, a little bit is good. Okay, and then the last two you wanted to add is aligot et tartiflette.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about those?
Well, aligot is a dish that comes from the same region, actually, as the tripou, which is the Auvergne, which is the Massif Central, the central part of France, kind of closer to us in the south. And unlike some of these other weird things, it's a strange mixture that is really delicious because it is a mixture of a kind of Cantal cheese that is made specifically for this, mixed in with mashed potatoes and lots of garlic and olive oil, and it's stirred together so that it looks like taffy.
Yeah, it looks stringy.
It's really all melted together, and it's served as a winter dish, and it is so yummy and so caloric. It is unbelievable. And it's the thing to eat if you go to that region of France.
Yeah, and if you go to Christmas markets or places like that, they will serve it everywhere.
Right. And there's one stand here that has it at the Christmas time, and everybody winds up going and having their little dish of it for lunch. You walk around eating it, and it is yummy.
It's very good.
It's very, very yummy. And the other one, which is more from the Alps, is the tartiflette, which is another version of a dish that's made with melted cheese.
Yeah.
And it's basically
potatoes
and a special kind of cheese. I was going to say it's the same cheese as for fondue, but it isn't. It's kind of like a raclette. And you have a special dish that is like a chafing dish, and you heat the cheese. So it's kind of like a cheese fondue, but it's more just directly heated. You melt the cheese, and then you put it on pieces of potato or pieces of charcuterie. And it's very nice, except that since I don't eat melted cheese for other reasons, I don't eat it a lot.
Right. And
but it is actually quite
it's one
good.
that you will find at Christmas markets all over France.
And people now, if someone gets married or somebody moves to a new house, you find that a lot of times they're offered a tartiflette dish, like a raclette dish, so that you can make these things for company at home.
They're very good when you have company and you want the meal to be a slow kind of meal, because it takes a while. Everybody has to prepare their own thing.
And it's kind of informal, so it's fun, But these are, I love the aligot, but these are dishes that if you have to watch your calorie intake, you have to be careful
Don't
about.
eat that.
But otherwise, they're good.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, the tripou, which we skipped over, but it's like tripes.
It's like tripes, except that the recipe is a recipe that is from the same area as the aligot. So the ingredients, it tends to be more, it's cooked in a broth. So it's not like I'm trying to find what did it say with the tripe from Normandy?
Well, it depends on it can be
I don't remember how
sheep or cattle,
but it's in Auvergnat. It's cow.
Okay.
It's calf, and it's cooked in a broth, so it's not in a rich cream sauce. Mm-hmm. But the problem is.
But it's still tripes.
It's still tripes.
Yeah,
that's the problem. It's people say it's really tasty, and you see there are little pieces of carrot and onion and stuff like that in the sauce. But
it makes it healthy, right?
It makes it healthier. But if I had to choose between that and the aligot, I go for the aligot.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then in France, we also have normal foods with really strange names.
Yeah,
like tête de nègre.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a pastry. It's a black pastry.
Chocolate?
Yeah, it's chocolate.
Okay.
Yes.
Well.
And pain de nonne.
Not exactly politically correct,
No,
obviously.
not politically correct. Pain de nonne is a beignet type of thing. It's a
what does it pay,
donut.
Annie? What does it pay?
It's a fart.
Yeah.
So it's nun's
It's a
fart.
beignet, huh? It's a nun's fart. There you are. And it's a kind of deep-fried donut.
Yes, it is a donut. Irregular shaped donut.
Irregular shaped.
Yeah. And then we have jams called like gratte-cul.
I've never heard of that. What is that?
It's some sort of, I don't know. It's like, it's a jam. I don't know. It's some weird fruit, probably. I've seen it. I've bought it for people because it was funny. But I've never, it's not one that I consume regularly at my house. And then you have the trou du cru cheese.
Wow.
That's from Burgundy. Don't say that fast too many times, or it'll sound really bad.
Really? And it is a cheese, huh?
It is a cheese. So we have a lot of names like that. And I think in touristy areas, they do this on purpose. They will do a jam with a funny name.
But do people know what it says?
It doesn't matter. It's funny. So they buy it as a gift.
Ah.
You see? And I've done that myself. You know, you find a jam with a funny name and a funny picture, and you're like, haha, I'll get one of those for my sister. She'll laugh, you know. And then she'll eat it, and the jam is probably completely unremarkable.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly.
It's just a funny name. So, all right, we're down to the end of our list. At least we have been talking a long time. But before we end, we have to commiserate on our teeth.
We are commiserating with each other.
So one of the reasons why I went back to being vegetarian is because a few weeks ago I was in Spain and I was driving back. And when I go to Spain, since it's my own apartment, I have to kind of clean it all up before I leave, right? And so by the time I leave, it's usually 2 p.m. or something. It's late. And I was really, really, really hungry, and I had emptied out the apartment. There was nothing to eat. So I'm really, really hungry, and I'm driving home to France, and
it's many hours.
And it's 5 hours to drive home. And I had an appointment that night that I didn't want to miss. And so I'm rushing. And so I stop at the Burger King.
That'll teach you to go buy Burger King.
I will never do that again. And
you should sue them, actually.
And I bought a Whopper, just a plain old Whopper. And I'm driving my car and biting into this heartily because I'm so hungry. And there was a freaking piece of bone in there.
I'm telling you should sue them.
And it broke my teeth.
And it broke
my
her
tooth. And it was a clean break. It wasn't even a tooth that was fragile for any other reason. It was a perfectly healthy tooth.
This is why you should not get away with it. But you don't have the proof anymore.
Oh, it's too late. It's too late. I was so distraught because I could tell, and it hurt. And so I've had to have my first root canal ever, which was traumatic enough.
And ladies and gentlemen out there, you should know that she is so lucky and doesn't realize it, that this is her first root canal. I have had so many that it's like eating popcorn.
Oh, I was worried about it for a whole month.
She was. And then she comes back and we're on the phone and we see each other and she tells me she broke her tooth and I'm going, poor Annie. And I go home and one night later, I'm eating some horrible, overcooked, very hard grains of rice. That's my own fault. And I crunch down on them, and guess what happens to me? I break a tooth also. And so all last week, we kept sending messages back and forth to each other about our bobos in our mouths and how much it hurt and how it was going to end.
How's your tooth?
How's your tooth? It has nothing to do with the food we've been talking about.
No. But
we just had this happen at the same time.
But some of these foods are deboned too, so be careful.
You have to be careful. Yeah, and hopefully these things will not happen to you.
Right. And so people who subscribe to the mailing list, I will send you a list of all of those so you can take it with you when you go to Paris and know what you're getting into and avoid those things.
And for some of you who are absolutely the most courageous people on the face of this earth, hey, you can always try something once.
That's right. Try them. There's people who go eating spiders in the Amazon.
It's so funny you said that because I was just 2 weekends ago, they had a organic food and natural products thing, a special, what do you call a salon and a foie, here in Toulouse.
Convention.
A convention kind of thing, where everybody has a stand. And so I went because I was kind of curious to see what they would have. And I was kind of disappointed. It was pretty much more of the same, except for a couple of places where I got a couple of herbal teas. And sure enough, there was a stand that was selling insects. Roasted and fried and turned into a kind of pate, and I didn't try it.
You didn't try it?
No. If the pate had been opened and it was something you could spread on a piece of bread, I guess I would have. But there was one that was just like this big bowl where you could pick up a couple of chips. It was like these little fried thingies.
Yes, I've had those. I've tasted one of those.
And I just couldn't.
Yeah,
but I think this is going to be the future for protein, unfortunately.
Could be. It's hard to know.
Couldn't bring myself to do it.
But we've just taken a good look at the past of food, of meat and protein, and some of it is a little bit scary too.
Yeah.
I don't know if eating tripe is any scarier than eating insects.
I'm sure it isn't. It's just what you're used to.
Yes, it's just what you're used to.
It's just what you're used to out there, guys.
When in France, don't necessarily rely on the waiter's poor translation skills.
Yeah.
Just have your list of things that you either want to try or do not want to try.
Exactly.
And just, and you don't have to worry about, am I going to be shocked or not?
No, and you can always say no.
And have a wonderful time next time you come to France.
And enjoy eating.
All right. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thank you, Ashley Kinnear-Lewis, Sergio Famiglietti, George Graves, Heidi DeMars, and Joel Keeler for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. I asked on the Facebook group who was going to be the 100th patron, and it was Sergio. My thanks to all of you patrons, whether you're number 100 or not, you support the show month after month. Thank you so much for giving back. And to support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/join us. Patreon. And join us is without any spaces or dashes. And you guys are wonderful. Thank you. And thank you also Dawn Davis and Lynn Gee for your one-time donation. To see all the ways you can support the show, direct and indirect, and we do need your support, visit joinusinfrance.com/support. Well, the personal update this week is going to be super short. The weather has been glorious. As a matter of fact, I put off recording this this introduction because I've been outside all day. I don't know about you, but as soon as the weather gets nice, I just want to be outside. I'm like, I've been behind this computer too long. So this is turning out to be a really good week to be in France if you are here. Other than the train strike, things are looking really good weather-wise in France. And speaking of the train strike, it's bound to continue some more because the French Assembly just did something that's going to really annoy the cheminots, so the people who work for the train company. They adopted the text to reform the SNCF with no amendments. Like they just read it and voted overwhelmingly in favor. And so obviously the people who work are probably going to get extra motivated to go out on strike. It's about 30% of the people who work for SNCF who are on strike, who go on strike. This goes up a little bit and down a little bit by a percentage or two. But it manages, just having that few people on strike, manages to block 70 to 75% of the traffic because they need to have people to fill all the positions, and sometimes they don't. So that's one of the big problems with this strike. But hopefully the government will come to an agreement with the people who work there, and it'll be over soon. In the meantime, if you are experiencing big problems with this, please come on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook and let us know if you need any help figuring out another way to get around. At Join Us in France, we put France in your ears, and you found a way that works for you to listen to the show. Please help other people find the show too, so they can learn what they need to know to have a great time in France. If you have friends who are going to be visiting France, tell them that they can listen with their Alexa smart speaker or with their smartphone using Spotify, with iTunes, with Google Play, or with any number of podcast apps. They can even listen on the joinusinfrance.com website if they wish. I think it'll make a big difference on how well prepared they are for their trip, don't you? To connect with me, email Annie at joinusinfrance.com or leave a message at 1-801-806-1015. You can also join the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook. When you do, please answer the questions so I know you're not a spammer. There are people that I'm not sure, and I just decline because it's not clear if you don't talk to me. Have a great weekend of trip planning, and I'll talk to you next week. Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2018 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.